So in the last module, I went through the outline, the process, and I'm presuming you have gone through this portion of the module. Now we'll get into the sales and variable cost. Now, one of the things I like to do, and I would recommend more as a learning in a process, and I'll apply it here, is when you have a project or a process that is large, especially if you have never done it before, I would recommend that you break it up, the process, into smaller chunks. And once you have done it enough times, you may not have to do it, but if you're doing it the first few times, it is good to kind of create a project plan out of it. So, for example, what I'm going to do is kind of go through these steps. We'll go through sales, price and quantity. We'll go through variable cost. These are the two things we're going to talk about in this module, and then I want to stop, and then I'm going to continue. From there, we get into fixed cost, and there are two pieces to it. One that is startup, that we need just up front when we start the business, and some ongoing fixed cost. Then what are some of the longer term fixed costs that have to be depreciated? From there we end up into what I call our first initial income statement. From there we can figure out the working capital and cash flow. From there we can figure out how much startup capital will I need. Then make some assumptions on if you're going to borrow or invest, debt versus equity. And from there we can come up with our income statement. And then we can do break-even analysis and NPV and net present value and IRR. So that's the step we're going to go through. So as you go through it, I'm going to try to break it into small chunks so it is easy to get a head around it. And at each step, I am going to talk about it using PowerPoints, and I also open up the Excel spreadsheet so we can kind of look at it and see how does it look like, at least in the spreadsheet that I am using for this particular tutorial. So, starting with the quantity. Remember, sales has price times quantity, and so we have to, at least think about both. And as I mentioned in the first module, you would have applied all that you've learned through research and applied through your marketing and so on, and you have come up with price and quantity. And in this module, I'm trying to take that information and funnel it through and coming up with a financial outlook or financial plan. So in this example, I'm going to assume that we have more than one product A and product B. And product could be a widget, product could be a service, but I'm going to use two products. At least you can see, and you could have more than two, you can have 3, 4, but you can continue with the logic. But the reason I want to show two products versus one product, at least you will see that when you at least you can see what happens when you more than one product. How do you develop your Excel spreadsheet? Then you can replicate that for product 3, product 4, and so on. Okay, so let's say for product A, we have done a market analysis either using IBIS report, World Report, whatever, and let's say for this particular product, the market size is 100,000. Okay, that's the research we have done, and that's what we've come up with. The next thing will be is to say how much is the market growing? And again, in this whole analysis, I'm using 10 years because a lot of the projects you're going to find that 5 years is too short to really get a good return. You probably need to go have a business that lasts at least 10 years. So I'm using 10 years to kind of be more comprehensive. So market size in this example, let's say I'm using 100,000, and whatever research you have done, you could be million pieces, 1,000 pieces, 10,000 pieces, whatever. The next thing to think about is okay, what does the research say about market growth? Is how much will there be a demand growth in this market? Not what we are going to sell, but the overall market. How much will it grow? In this example, again, you can put whatever number we want. I'm putting in 3%. So what I am doing here, and rather than having one number that I could have put it up here in the cell and say 3%, let it grow every year, I'm providing an Excel spreadsheet the optionality that I can go in and change every year. Sometimes what happens is that our estimation or research may show the market could grow a little bit faster and then slow down. So this allows us to be able to, include those numbers. So once I have this number, I can calculate this number, which is to taking $100,000, growing it by 3%, I get that. Taking this number, growing by 3%, I get that. Taking this number, growing by 3%, I get that, and so on. So this is the market. So that basically says that this market, if it's going to start at 100,000, and if it grows at our research or our assumptions of whatever number we plugged it into these cells, it will be at this level. So every year we kind of know what the market size will be. Next, we have done in your market research analysis, etc. You've done that you think you can get about 10% of the market share in the year one. You think that about maybe 10 people and in the market, and plausible assumption is you can try to maybe get 1/10 of the market. Next question it will be is to say, okay, how much will your growth rate be for your business, for your product A? Maybe, and again, keeping it separate, every number in an Excel spreadsheet, which is the smart thing to do, so you can kind of change it. Let's say you assume in year one, you're starting on, the growth rate will be 0. And then you're going to grow. Next year, you think your business will establish, you're going to grow by 5%. So now you have 5% growth, 10% growth, whatever assumptions are. Remember, hypothetically in here, in this example, I'm assuming that we can grow a little bit faster in the first few years. And then maybe after that, we're going to grow at the, overall, what the overall market is growing. Again, that's the assumption, whatever logic you may use. Again, I'm trying to help you put together a financial plan, again, based on your assumptions. So this will be the quantity that we think we can sell. Again, based on the price assumptions, which we'll talk next. And that will basically be part of this overall market. So if we are growing at a much higher rate than our assumption for the market is, for example, let me just clean up this. If we are growing, in the assumption I'm making that market is growing at 3% a year, and our assumption, our business is going to grow at a little bit faster rate, 5%, 10%, 5%, and then it's going to be at a market rate. So what's going to happen is that our market share growth will rate. So how will we figure that out? Well, the way we figure it out is that we take the market share number, we take the number that we are forecasting, and from there we can figure out what the market share will be, which basically is, in this case, is this number 15465 divided by 130,475, and you'll get 11.8%. So in Excel spreadsheet, you plug it in, you get that. So what would the Excel spreadsheet look like? As I mentioned, I will go back and forth between the Excel spreadsheet. So here's the Excel spreadsheet. Here's the one I mentioned, ties in with the one that is on the PowerPoint. Let me kind of show you what I mean by that. Here is one on the top next to the right before the word product A. That basically is the linkage between, from a conversation perspective, where do you find in the Excel. So here is number one, right? So Excel, this is the starting point. These numbers 103, 106, they are calculated. How are they calculated? They're based on the numbers. So I'm just going to kind of use a pen to circle it so I can so you know what I am. So here is a number starting with market size is 100,000. Our assumption is it's going to grow 3% a year. So we do let the Excel do the calculation. It grows for us. We starting out with the market share of 10%. We are going to grow at this rate. And that's what's going to happen. And again, you will have this Excel spreadsheet, so you can see the formulas in there. We can do the same thing for product B. Product B, which would be the number 2 on the slide. So let me go to the product B, and then I'll come back to the Excel spreadsheet. So product B, again, same logic. Are you just using a different set of numbers in this example than product A? And so the product B will be, let's say we have a market that is, product B market is 30,000, and it is growing, and let's say this particular product grows at a much faster rate in our research. So it's going to grow at 5%, so we figure that out. And we can also figure out what is going to be our share of it. If you're assuming that we can get 10%, then 30,000 from 10% is 3,000. And again, we think we're going to grow at a little bit faster rate for this product, 5%, 10%, 15%, 20%, and then go to 5%. And based on the assumption, this is our forecast of what many quantity we are going to sell. Okay. And this thing over here is a reference I put it in, just to add them up, is what would the total market be for product A and product B if I wanted to know that, and so on. So total market is product A and product B. So let me go to the Excel spreadsheet, and again, you'll have to do the same thing. So I'm going to spend some time in the Excel spreadsheet now before I go to the PowerPoint. So this way you can see the formula. So if I click here, I want you to see up here, because once I use the pen, then I cannot open the cell. So here is the cell. Just look at the formulas on the top. You can see this is cell B times 1 plus this growth rate gives me that number. If I come over here, it's going to be cell C and so on. And then this is, our assumption is we can get a 10% market share, which is cell B5. B7 basically says, okay, if the market is 100,000, which is cell B3, if our market share is 10%, which is cell B5, obviously this number will add up to that. So the calculation is done automatically. Now, I'm going to change a number, and I want to just circle where I'm going to change it so I can point out to you so you can look at it. But once I take the pen out, I'll have to remove the pen in order to use the Excel. So I say, what if I decide to say that, okay, instead of market share growing at 3%, what if it is growing only at, we find, 2% or 1% or whatever? You can just go change that number and everything will automatically calculate. And that's what you want to be able to do, because like I said in the first module, it is very difficult sometimes to forecast the future. None of us know what the future will be. We're kind of using the logic, using the analysis, doing the research, and you're forecasting it. But in order to have the confidence in our business model, we want to be able to do what ifs and be able to say, okay, if the plausible assumption is the market may not grow at 3%, economy may get bad and grows to only 2%, and what if the economy gets bad in the next 5 years and it slows down to 2% growth, what's going to happen? You can go and make that number to 2% and everything else will automatically change for you. And that's why it is important and a must in a financial planning for a business plan that you kind of think it through this way, okay? So once you have done that, let me go to the PowerPoint again. Product B, now we say is to say, okay, if I've done product A, what does the total quantity look like? Total quantity for the market, the forecast. If you're forecasting these numbers over here for from our Excel spreadsheet, 10,000, 10,500, so on for product A, and then we do the same in product B. The total quantity is going to be as shown on the bottom. And again, it is coming, it is basically calculated by the Excel spreadsheet. So what have we done so far? We basically said, okay, I got two widgets or two services, product A and product B. This is a forecast for the market. This is the forecast for our year one market share. Next thing is, what are we forecasting our growth rate to be, and from there we can figure out what the quantity we are going to sell, and from there we can also figure out what's going to happen to a market share. The reason it is important to do this, what I just did over here, which is this market share, you want to keep an eye on it. Otherwise, if your assumptions of growth are too unrealistic, and you start to see your market share becoming 30-40%, you have to really ask yourself, what makes you think that if there are 10 players or 15 players, your market share can be that high? Unless you have a secret sauce, you have a patent or something that guarantees success, and even then, it cannot be forever. Like it was with the iPad. It was good for first 3 or 4 years. Now there's a lot of competition out there. So you want to be able to kind of keep an eye on that, and this kind of gives us a clue to say, okay, as I am assuming my growth rate, I can also keep an eye on what the market share will be, and that kind of gives us some way to kind of keep some checks and balances in our analysis. Okay. We've done product A, product B. We can add them up, and then we go to the price portion of it, which is the number 4. Now again, you have, by this time you've done the marketing piece and you've done your analysis. I'm just helping you kind of put it in the blender for you. So again, over here, you'll have to have made your assumptions based on research or plausible assumptions, whatever. And you'll have a product A and you have a product B. Product A, product B could be service or could be a widget. You're going to make some assumption on the price growth, or what it's going to be. In this example, I'm just putting in 4%. Again, each year is a separate number, which means that I can go in and be more, I can change it. Maybe, for example, a lot of times what happens is that a new business, if they do not have enough, anything special, they may not grow their prices early enough for the first couple of years. So you can have maybe 0% or 2% or even negative price reduction and then later on grow it. So by having it at different years, you can change it. So next thing is the price. You've done the analysis, you've seen similar products, etc., and depending upon your strategy, you may want to come in a little bit lower or whatever. Let's say you concluded that it's going to be $20, for that particular product. And then if you're assuming the growth rate to be 4%, then Excel will calculate it for you, and you will basically know what the price will be over the next X years. We do the same thing for the product B. In this example, I'm assuming 3% growth, and again, you can put in whatever you want based on your research, based on your plausible assumption, and from there you can figure out what the price will be. So now what we have done, we have come up with a quantity for product A and quantity for product B. We've come up with price for product A and price for product B. The next step, obviously, is the sales. So the sales is what? Sales is how many do I sell of product A times what the price will be for product A. And from there, we can get the sales. So sales is taking, as shown on the top, taking your quantity times price. For product A, we take into quantity times price, we get this number, then we add those up and we get the total sales. So this is the very first item on income statement. This is the sales line on the income statement. Okay, so that's how you get to your income statement. Let me show you on the Excel how it was built. Okay, and again, by having Excel, you can go look at the formula because you will have the Excel file. So we did 3, we did the 4th assumption, and we did the 5. So the 5, so let me just kind of walk you through. We did the we calculated the product A, we calculated quantity for product A, we did the calculated for quantity for product B. We calculated the total quantity combining product A and product B. And again, when you see the formulas, you can see what the cells are calculating in there. Then assumptions of product A price, and then below, let me just go a little bit lower. Then you get into the pricing side of it. I'm sorry. Pricing for product, we put in the 4% growth rate in our assumptions, and these are calculated. So these have to be calculated. This way you can go in and change any of these numbers and you get the price you want. So this way you can do what if. What if you want to lower the price first couple of years so the competition comes in and everything is automatically calculated. Okay, because everything is all connected. You will see as I go through these modules with you. Once we know the price, once you know the price for product A, price for product B, we already know the quantity. We can figure out the sales, which is the price time quantity, and this is what Excel will calculate it for you when you put in the formula, as you will find in my Excel spreadsheet. The other thing I want to point out to you is if you have more than one product, and if you want to do break even, which we will do later on, so I will bring this thing up again, but you can just kind of look at it over here. You also want to be able to calculate the average price. Okay, and that is the PowerPoint that is title number 6. When I open the PowerPoint, I'll go to it, so at least you can see there. But over here, I want to show you the Excel portion of it. And what this is going to be your total sales divided total quantity. And so at least, and again, you will need this later on to do the break even, because there are more than one product, you have to come up with the average price, and that would be based on the average quantity also. So then you can also graphically start to see things, so you can kind of visualize what's going on. And again, you can do whatever graphs you want. I just created a graph for sales. I said, okay, if I want to see what the sales look like for product A versus product B. This is what it looks like. Blue in this case is product A, and it's product C. So this is the growth, and it kind of gives you a good visual. And especially if you got 4 or 5 different products, you can kind of have a good visual of which one gives which one is really important for you. For example, in this business, if I look at this business, and if I in this example, if I had only 2 products in this business, and big chunk of my business depends on product A, I better pay a lot of attention to product A, because if I lose market share on product A, and that is a big portion of my business, then obviously it's going to hurt me a lot. So that's why sometimes it's good to kind of think through which product are more important to you and you pay a lot of attention. On the other hand, if you see a product here and if you see there is more potential to grow, whereas product A may be, you kind of maximize the ability to do the market share. So again, this is just kind of more a tool that you can use, and you can kind of graph anything you want and just kind of graph the sales over here for the product. And how did I do that? I basically, you want to do that, you basically are going to say, bring the data that you want. I brought the sales data down over here, and I'm going to go and just range the area that I want to graph. I'll go to insert, go to the graph. I want this one, I want bar graph. I want a stack graph. Okay, and here it is. So I just did the whole thing again for you. And again, you can, I'm sure a good Excel book will tell you how to do this. So now let me go to the PowerPoint. PowerPoint, like I mentioned, we did the sales. Graphically, I'm showing that. Just I basically cut and paste the chart so I can show it to you. Number 6, like I said, is to do the average unit price, which is the total sales divided by the total quantity. And again, we will need this to calculate break-even when we get to the break-even later on. Okay. So now we go to the variable cost. Okay. So the variable cost has to do with any costs that are directly related to making things. And example will be if you are making a widget and you need some material to make it, and the people that directly associated with making that with direct costs. Or if you buy something, let's say you got a store and you're buying something and you're going to sell it in your store, variable costs will be obviously any cost that is directly associated with making it. Okay, so in this example, obviously we got to do a couple things again, just like we did with the revenue. We need to have our estimate for the cost will be when we start out, and what do we think the cost will grow at. And typically, cost growth assumption of keeping an inflation is a pretty plausible number. So if you assume 3%, which is typical. On average, typical inflation rate in the U.S., that's not a bad number. But again, if you want to change that, you can change that. But anything less than 3% may not be plausible, so just be careful. It could be higher if you happen to have a business where it is you're buying something, unique item that could grow at a faster inflation rate than what typical inflation rate. So now you have a unit cost, you have inflation rate. Again, you're basically applying the inflation rate and figuring out what the unit cost will be as you go through time. Do the same thing for product B. I'm assuming $8 for this product, and again, you go through it and so on. That's what you are going to get. Now, one thing I will say that, sometimes the question comes up is, I'm not sure if this cost is a variable or if it is not. The value of having a variable cost is it allows you to figure out how much money is left over after we have spent money making it to be able to pay for the rest of the bills. Okay. So let's say, for example, I have a retail and I am selling shoes. Okay. A variable cost would be the price I will pay to the supplier that is selling me the shoes. So let's say I pay $20 to buy a pair of shoes. That's a variable cost. And let's say I'm selling these shoes for $30. So I'm selling for $30. I'm subtracting $20. I get $10. And that $10 times the quantity I'm going to sell is the amount of money I'll have left over to be able to pay my other cost, the rent for the store. staff that I might need to run the place, utility bills and so on, and that's the value comes in. Now, on the other hand, it is not that super important, because at the end of the day, as long as you're capturing the cost somehow, be in the operating cost or or the variable cost, it will get captured. So as long as you're capturing it, it is really important. But typically, you're going to find in running a business, you are going to find that the business leaders will want to break out costs that are directly related to the product, be the price of the shoes, or if it is making shoes, for example. Let's say the shoe factory. The amount of leather they will need, assuming the leather shoes, amount of rubber in the sole, amount of money for maybe it has whatever goes in the material to make the shoe, the labor required that is going to make the shoe, that is a direct cost. All that will become a variable cost, a unit variable cost. Unit is one, that is cost per making a shoe. All the other costs, aside from the labor that is making it, aside from the material that we buy, all the other costs, the rent for the factory, supervision running the factory, electric bills, cost to maintain the parking lot, cost to maintain the machines, cost to maintain the factory, all that stuff becomes fixed cost or operating cost. Now, what if it's a service organization? Let's say you have a hair salon. Okay, how will we think through variable costs there? So let's say it's a barber shop, and let's say a barber shop is charging $25 per haircut. So that's the price. And let's say you have a person that is cutting the hair, and let's say this person is making $30 per hour. And let's say this person can do 2 hair cutting for 2 male gentlemen per barber shop. It's 2 people. So it's making $30 an hour. That means per haircut it's costing you $15 because half hour worth of work. So now the variable cost for this service organization or barbershop is $15 per haircut. The price is $25, and hence 25 minus 15 is your $10, and that's your gross margin that you can use times the number of haircuts you will do to pay the fixed cost, and then what is left over is going to be your profit. So you can apply the same logic for service organization too. But again, the important part is that you somehow capture all the costs. If there's a bit of a confusion between is a variable or a fixed, that is not that important. But what is important is that you think of all the costs it takes to run the business, okay? So now that we have done the unit cost, which means unit is one, that means cost per piece. We've done it for A and B. How do we get to the total? We basically take the unit cost times the quantity. We already concluded how many we're going to sell. That's how we came up with the sales plan. So we can take the same quantity number, and we're going to multiply it, and we get the variable cost for product A. It's going to cost us $150,000 and $24,000 for product B. The total cost is going to be $174,000. So this would be the next line in your income statement called variable cost. Okay. It is also cost of goods sold. So I put it in here in brackets or parentheses. Sometimes you may look at income statement, or you will say it's cost of goods sold, or you may say cost of revenue. Basically, it means that it is a cost that is very close, directly related to providing the service or providing the product. A barber cutting the hair, the direct costs. Buying shoes for a retail shoe store is a variable cost. Somebody's making shoes, and the leather and the rubber and the shoelaces that you need, plus the labor to make it, is your direct cost, or a variable unit cost. And from there you multiply by the quantity, and you will get the total cost. And again, over here, we will also want to calculate the average variable cost. We will need this to do break even, and average variable cost is nothing more than taking your total variable cost, which is this number, dividing by the total quantity, which is from a total quantity line. That's what you're going to get. So let's go to the Excel spreadsheet and see how we can wrap up this portion piece of it. So if I go to the variable cost tab, again 7, 8, and 9 ties to the PowerPoints. You got product A quantity. We already have done that. Basically, that should be pulled. As you can see, let me just kind of use the pen. it should be pulled from the prior tab. You should not plug it in by hand, because in case if you decide to change your sales forecast, it should times. That's why you can see I'm basically plugging it in. How did I do that? I basically go in over here to this quantity product A, and I say plus cell. I go to that tab and plus it from there, and that's how I get it. So this way everything is all connected. So this way if I change it, the quantity, it will change it both for the sales and for the variable cost. Cost growth. Cost growth is 3%. In this example, we can change whatever we want. From there we get the unit cost. Once we have the unit cost for product A, product B, we can add them up. We get total variable cost, and that's what the slide C was. In order to get the average unit cost, we can do the calculation. And the last piece, obviously, is the gross margin, which is, as you may recall from your finance class or from looking at the other thing in Tim Berry's book. Gross margin is really nothing more than the price minus unit cost. That's the unit gross margin. Unit again is 1, right? So if I look at the price of product A, which was 25, minus a cost which was 20, I will get a product A, a gross margin there. Okay. So this is gross margin, and again, this basically is the end of the module. The next thing I will do is to get into the fixed cost.